New tonight, we're focusing on the impact and consequences words can have. Today, we learned University of Tennessee Athletics is not allowing a prospective student to become a UT cheerleader. She also will not be attending UT in the fall. This comes after UT investigated reports of her using racial slurs in a video posted on Twitter. UT said in a statement, the university takes seriously our commitment to fostering a volunteer community that values equity, inclusion, and that promotes respect for all people. We have a responsibility to support our Black students and create a place where all Vols feel safe. Now, earlier this week, we told you about a nurse being fired from Blount Memorial Hospital after it says she made racial slurs on social media. The hospital also alerted the Tennessee State Board of Nursing so it can do its own review. So we're focusing on what's protected under the First Amendment and how it's different for private businesses and organizations. Earlier today, we spoke to Professor Stuart Harris. He teaches constitutional law at Lincoln Memorial University, and here's what we learned.
Well, first thing to remember is that the First Amendment, although it does protect our freedom of speech and of assembly, only protects us against the government. So only if the government tries to restrict our speech do we have a First Amendment issue. Frequently, these issues arise outside of the governmental context when, for example, an employer, a private employer, is disciplining an employee for perhaps racist speech online or something of that sort. Generally speaking, private employers can fire their employees for virtually any reason except for things like gender or race discrimination. But when you move into the public realm, when you talk about the University of Tennessee, well, that's a state entity, that's a governmental entity. And so you have to be a little bit more careful. You've got to go into the details a little bit more. On the one hand, as a state entity, UT can't simply penalize its students, even its admitted students who haven't come yet, simply for what they say or the opinions they express. On the other hand, as an academic community, trying to make sure that everybody in that community is equal and welcome to campus, they are going to be allowed some leeway by the courts. Just because you have a right to freedom of speech doesn't mean that you have a right to freedom of speech without consequences. So if, for example, I were to start insulting you right now, you might very well want to respond in kind, and you would have that right as well. So there are consequences to what we do. So just because you have a constitutional right to say something doesn't mean it's a good idea to do so.
We also spoke to Allison Rose Dushpere. She's a recovery specialist and explains how using that type of speech can impact society.
I think the major disconnect here is yes, we can say whatever we want. That's the beauty of our freedom. However, should you? And why shouldn't you say things that are harmful to the Black community? But when you are creating harmful content, particularly online, or you are speaking in a harmful manner, you are inflicting what could be trauma on another person. And in doing so, what does that say about you as a person? To me, it's as simple as if you're using harmful language towards the Black community, then you have something in you that you need to take a real deep look at. In regards to social media, if you are hidden behind a laptop, a phone, or a device, and you are creating and putting out into the world some sort of hate speech, it's still racism, just as much as when you say it in person. Educate yourself fully on the history of the Black man and what he's had to go through throughout history and why trauma has carried over for so many years. It will bring about a type of change that will be so needed, so necessary, and taken far too long to get to.